Hello and welcome all. Welcome back to the Import-Export Hub channel, everybody. Bias Bagdan here, your not so entertaining host for the next couple of minutes, boring minutes. Thanks for joining me. And guys, without anything else to add to this introduction, allow me to start covering the imports and exports of Turkey with 2022 as the reference here if you want. But before that, some quick facts about Turkey. And well, it has a population of roughly 85 million people. In 2022, Turkey ranked as the 20th largest country in terms of GDP. It's strategically located at the border between Southeast Europe and West Asia. It's considered an upper middle income country, and with some $230 billion cumulatively as foreign direct investments pouring into Turkey between 2003 and 2021, well, it became the manufacturing hub for some of the most important European companies, and not only, with the automotive industry being a particular competitive cluster, as you will see in the following minutes. And one last quick fact, guys, in terms of logistics performance index, for the 2023 data, well, it scored relatively well, if you ask me, some 3.4 from a total of 5 points, with some work to do in what concerns customs. So these were some info about Turkey. Now let's see Turkey's exports for 2022 with a macro view in terms of combined nomenclature chapters, the top 10 ones, and basically we see that overall in 2022 it managed to export some $254 billion with chapter 87, so vehicles leading the way, with almost $27 billion and a share of some 10.5% in Turkey's overall exports. It was followed by Chapter 84 with some $22.7 billion, and on the third spot we have here mineral fuels and oils with some $16.4 billion worth of exports. And the top 10 list continues with, iron and steel, so chapter 72, plastics, and the top 10 list ends with chapter 62 here, so articles of apparel and clothing accessories not knitted, with some, $8.5 billion worth of exports and a share of roughly 3.3% in Turkey's overall exports for 2022. Sorry, for the compound annual growth rate for the last 5 years is overall positive, some 8.7%, with chapter 39 and 73 above the 10% mark. Sorry, and okay, we have also the mineral fuels chapter 27 with 30%, but this is an outlier if you ask me, as let's face it, it benefited a lot from what happened between Ukraine and Russia, as Turkey doesn't have in place any interdictions to trade with Russia, so basically it's seizing the opportunity. And let's face it, it's not the only country. India is doing the same thing. Anyways, narrowing to a year-on-year analysis, we have almost 13% expansion in 2022 relative to 2021, with almost all the top 10 chapters expanding, except with iron and steel and chapter 71, so precious and semi-precious metals, who suffered some contractions, while chapter 27, in terms of exports, almost doubled in value in 2022, basically offsetting the negative results of the two previous chapters I've talked about. So guys, these were Turkey's overall exports in 2022, and now I will cover the overall imports, and we see that in 2022 these amounted to some $363.7 billion, which is 34% more than in 2021, with chapter 27, 84, and 72 as the main drivers, followed by others like, I don't know, 85, 39, or 74. So copper and articles thereof with some $5.5 billion worth of imports. As I've said, the overall year-on-year dynamic was positive, with all the top 10 chapters having registered the growth. The largest one, both in absolute and relative terms, happening in relation with chapter 27 and chapter 71. Relative to the balance of trade here, so basically exports minus imports, we see a negative $109 billion for 2022, with only one chapter from these top 10 importing chapters having a positive trade balance, chapter 87, so vehicles, with some $9.1 billion. And guys, with the overall exports and imports being briefly covered in order to have an overview of Turkey's competitive industries, I'll now take the top 5 from each flow to see also the geographic distribution of the exports and imports. And as usual, I will start with the top performer chapter from the export flow, which is chapter 87, and here the main destinations are Germany, France, and the United Kingdom, followed by others like, I know, the United States, Slovenia, or Romania here. Towards this last one, Turkey exported some $626 million worth of goods. Clearly, the exports are focused mainly towards Europe, with the exception, of course, of the United States here, but otherwise it's quite continental in scope, as the major European car manufacturers have plants in Turkey, from, I don't know, Renault and Opel to Toyota and Mercedes-Benz. The automotive cluster in Turkey is very developed, with a lot of vertical and horizontal connections, and for me at least, it's what keeps Turkey go through tough times. Now, in terms of year-on-year changes, we see a positive 7% change in relative terms, $1.7 billion, if I were to put a dollar figure to this percentage, with only 2 countries from this top 10 list displaying contractions, France and Slovenia also, while the other 8 manage positive figures, the largest one, at least in absolute terms, happening in relation with Poland, some $285 million more exports. Now, in what concerns the main export drivers from this particular chapter, we see that towards Germany we have heading 8708, so we are talking about parts and accessories for tractors, while towards Belgium we have heading 8704, so motor vehicles for the transport of goods, including chassis with engine. Jumping now, guys, to Turkey's second largest export driver, we have here chapter 84 with some $22.6 billion worth of exports, with a nice distribution of the exports, both geographically and in terms of value. So we don't have a big export concentration towards a particular country. And here Germany, Russia, and the United States were the main destinations, followed by others like, I don't know, Italy, Iraq, or Uzbekistan, to name just a couple from this top 10 list. Russia had an interesting development in 2022. I think that the EU and US sanctions contributed a lot to this growth. And of course, Turkey seized the opportunity and basically scored the largest year-on-year change in this top 10 list, both in absolute and relative terms. I don't know, jumping from $836 million in 2021 to some $1.63 billion in 2022. On the opposite side, we have 3 countries from this top 10 list who suffered contractions, so the United Kingdom, France, and Uzbekistan as well. This last one with some $104 million fewer imports relative to 2021. And guys, speaking of Russia earlier, let's see the main drivers as well. And basically in 2022, we have heading 8429, self-propelled bulldozers, graders, and other construction-related vehicles. While towards Iraq here, we have refrigerators and freezers, so heading 8418. Jumping now to Turkey's third largest export chapter, we have here mineral fuels and oils with some $16.4 billion, with the Netherlands, Lebanon, and South Africa as the main destinations, which were followed in this top 10 list by countries like, I don't know, Cyprus, Italy, or Ukraine, again, to name just a few. The year-on-year change was spectacular, some 94% in relative terms and almost $8 billion in absolute ones, with all the top 10 partners here having registered positive changes relative to the previous year, of course. The largest one in absolute terms happening in relation with the Netherlands, South Africa, and also Romania, all with figures above the $800 million mark. As for the drivers, well, here we see that for both South Africa and Cyprus, we have the same heading. So petroleum oils, excluding crude. So we are talking about heading 2710. The fourth largest export driver for Turkey in 2022 was Chapter 72, with some $14.6 billion worth of exports, with Israel here, Italy, and also Romania as the main destinations, which were followed in this top 10 list by other countries like, I don't know, Yemen, Bulgaria, or Canada here, this last one, with almost $455 million worth of imports from Turkey from this chapter. Now, relative to the year-on-year changes, we see a contraction, some $2.4 billion in absolute terms, with 5 countries managing to import more, and of course 5 who suffered some contractions. And I'll mention just the performers from both sides. And on the negative side, we have here Spain with almost $915 million fewer exports, while on the positive side, so expansion, we have Egypt with $173 million more exports. As for the main export drivers from this chapter, we see that towards Italy we have flat-rolled products of iron and non-alloy steel with a width equal or larger than 600 millimeters, so heading 7208, while towards Yemen here we have heading 7214, so we are talking about bars and rods of iron or non-alloy steel. And guys, with this being covered as well, I will move to Turkey's 5th largest export driver for 2022. And here we have Chapter 87, electrical machinery, equipment, and parts thereof, with some $13.7 billion worth of exports, which is 14% more than in 2021. With the United Kingdom, Germany, and France as the main destinations, followed by other important partners like, I don't know, the United States, Italy, or, I don't know, Poland, again, to mention just a couple. And the overall year-on-year change was positive, some $1.7 billion in absolute terms, with the United Kingdom and Italy having experienced some contractions, while the other 8 managed positive results. Russia here managing the largest absolute change, some $305 million more imports from Turkey. As for the main drivers, well, we see that towards France we have heading 8516, while towards the United States we have semiconductor devices, so heading 8541. And guys, finally, with these top 5 export chapters being covered, I will now move to the import flow, and the performer here was chapter 27 with some $96.5 billion worth of imports, which is almost 91% more relative to the 2021 figures, some $45.8 billion in absolute terms. So a huge increase, and we see that Russia here, areas not elsewhere specified, and India, where Turkey's main partners, followed, of course, by other petroleum exporters like Colombia, the United States, or Algeria. This last one with some $1.1 billion worth of exports towards Turkey. Relative to the year-on-year dynamics, so here we see that Russia and the areas not elsewhere specified had the largest increase in absolute terms, at least, and overall all the top 10 partners registered positive changes. As for the main drivers, we see that for both Russia and India, we have the same heading 2710, so petroleum oils excluding crude. Moving now to the second largest import driver for Turkey in 2022, we have chapter 87, and we see a lot of intra-chapter trading here, and basically the figures for 2022 are as follows: some $34.6 billion worth of imports, which is almost a third coming from China alone, while the second and third places are taken by Germany and Italy respectively, with significantly smaller amounts. And I don't know, the top 10 list continues with countries like the United Kingdom, Japan, or India. This last one with some $814 million worth of exports towards Turkey. Now, in what concerns the year-on-year changes, guys, all the top 10 partners here had positive changes. The largest one, again, in absolute terms, happening in relation with, guess who? China. Almost $1.1 billion more exports towards Turkey from this particular chapter in 2022, driven mainly by heading 8471. So we are talking about automatic data processing machines, while from, I don't know, South Korea here we have heading 8407, and we are talking about spark ignition, reciprocating, or rotary internal combustion piston engine. And with the main drivers from this heading covered, I will now move to the next one, the third largest one. So we are talking about chapter 72, iron and steel, with some $28.4 billion worth of exports, mostly from Russia and China, guys, as you can see. But of course, we have others in this top 10 list, like, I don't know, the Netherlands, Germany, or Belgium. This last one with almost $1 billion worth of exports towards Turkey. In what concerns the year-on-year changes, we have 1, 2, 3 countries with contractions. Russia having the largest figure in absolute terms, some $447.5 million. While on the expansion side, we have China with some $1.6 billion more exports towards Turkey, mostly driven by flat-rolled products of stainless steel with width larger or equal to 600 millimeters or 60 centimeters. And speaking here of main drivers, the other example I found involves the United Kingdom, and here we see that ferrous waste and scrap drove most of UK exports towards Turkey, so we are talking about heading 7204. Moving now to Turkey's fourth main import driver, we have chapter 71 here. Precious metals with almost $23.5 billion worth of imports in 2022, with Switzerland, the United Arab Emirates, and Italy as the main providers. or I don't know, exporters towards Turkey, followed in this top 10 list by others like, I don't know, South Korea, India, or Mauritania. This last one with some $262 million worth of exports towards Turkey. And here, except Iraq, who had a contraction in 2022, the rest of 9 registered expansions. The largest one, again in absolute terms, happening in relation with Switzerland, some $12.2 billion, mostly driven by heading 7108. And the same goes true for the other example here, so Mauritania. And lastly, guys, my fifth and last import driver that I'll cover, it's coming from heading 85. We are talking about electrical machinery and equipment with some $21.5 billion worth of imports. And again, we see how China is dominating this flow as well. $9 billion, followed by other countries like, I don't know, Germany, Vietnam, or Poland, again, to mention just a couple from this top 10 list. As we can see here from this top 10 list, only Germany and Japan as well registered the contraction in 2022, some, I don't know, $177 million cumulatively, while the rest of them had positive figures. The largest absolute positive change happening in relation with the friendly China, some $351 million. But personally, I see good figures coming also from Malaysia, some $260 million more exports towards Turkey in 2022, which is quite impressive. And speaking of Malaysia, here we see that heading 8541, so semiconductor devices drove most of its exports towards Turkey, while from Vietnam here we have smartphones, so heading 8517. Whew. And guys, with this last chapter being covered as well, that's all for today. Thanks for watching. I really hope you've liked it. Don't forget to hit whatever button you like above or below this video. And as usual, until next time, keep your business safe. Thanks.